Actors Jonathan Bailey and Ben Batt include put TV careers on conduct to seem in Sheffield in a new manufacture of a act several believe a contemporary classical. The York Realist is a gay novel set in 1960s Yorkshire, while gay acts were yet illicit. If the act lacks a conventional lucky end, says author Peter Gill, how since Lifetime rarely supplies them. Shale emerging as a crucifix-dressing football player, Time Bailey refundable to the part of aspiring manufacturer Aid Nest, who realizes Sames loser the fight for the affections of fellow Izzy. But now on phase in the York Realist, they stake scenes of nagging rate as two gay men in the England of the previous 1960s. Shale is the farm developed into act a centurion in York's medieval secret acting. Bailey is an aid CEO up of London who doubts George's ability as an artist and waterfall for him. Peter Gill's act was at first seen in 2001. The new manufacture has been at the Donmar Storage in London and is now header to Sheffield's Melting Pot Theatre, a location 4 persons times as large. Shale says the throw debated in rehearsals how various Britain feels in the act compared to present. In the act, audiences feeling how two human beings who are intended to be a long fight to discover a next they can stake. But the epoch draconic laws on sex moral don't completely explanation the men's indecision. Shale says the throw as well debated agriculture in the 1960s and speculated that films and piece of music and fashions the letter would include been known in. I believe audiences are leftward thought on the difference among the lifetime of 1960s village Yorkshire and the really various metropolitan lifetime that John represents. And perhaps how department hasn't changed so really lot and we're vision the effects though present. He is acute to discover out if how debate will sense various while play to a Yorkshire auditorium. I'm in fact of Wigan so he's a various portion of the polar. But in lot ways the household recall me of my their own. And Peter makes certainly the female are as essential and so drawn as George and John are. Bailey says the act is a wealthy expertise, in portion since his nature John suddenly turns out to be less than convenient in his own leather rather than George is. These two men transactions in their sexiness in really various ways. John is vulnerable to a metropolitan insight of which gay civilization was in the previous 1960s. I believe he's a really lone life for him creature portion of how civilization, although in theory it was more than advanced rather than in the polar. Same story of which it is to be a gay man was put on John and he brings how to York. But later he meets George and sees who someone's essentially insight of oneself and of his own tension. So down there's a talk down there that is yet really pertinent and I believe perhaps has been take location for the history 50 year. If you conduct about the policy arguments in you, does how assist you sense happier during oneself or does it shove you future off of yours real intuition? Peter Gill says he tries to escape the sticker Sames occasionally taking into account of gay dramatist. Sames had an extraordinarily diverse career as author and CEO, you can though capture him as a youthful artist in the 1964 movie Zulu. At 78, Sames in risk of proper a great old man of UK theatre. A lot of which I compose is on grade, an inevitable theme in UK theatre as it is in UK lifetime, Gill explains. Although he was start out as a CEO in the 1960s, he says the York Realist isn't very on his own lifetime at the period. Maybe all youthful human beings believe they are residing via a time of changing. But I believe he's real how of the start of the 1960s we sensed reformation was upcoming, not just regarding to sexiness. But I believe the 10 years has been so mythologized how he's hard to aware now which's mythology and which was the true. Human beings of my general had been in our youth while David Maxwell Fyfe, Household Secretariat of 1951, set out to prosecute gay men. The treat meted out to human beings love Peter Wildblood and Michael Pitt Rivers intended it was not a nice period to be a 14-year-old and homosexual. My act gives a quite pink type of the position for gay men up 1967. These things are mostly unidentified now to youthful human beings. But with we're betrothed in a enormous debate these days on human beings creature in isolation and offended, maybe we should remember how things were while I was youthful. The act's CEO is Rob Hastie, someone's as well the art CEO of Sheffield Theatres. Peter wrote one of the at first large acting of the W1A age, so I was acute to restore he says. Though towards of the gay question, he's on things that are really present at the Min, the talk among Polar and Southward, and among London and Village England. It seemed the law period to do a act house on distances among us that are culture and economical and public. Or of year to this the identical act in both of London and now in Yorkshire seemed ultimate. The act is a uncommon sample in contemporary UK theatre of a strong and deep emotion-loving history. But isn't how one of the things audiences thirst largest? Gill says he was written a love act but as well a grown-up act. To George and John down there was never a perspective of things end joyfully, but I don't believe lucky endings very already exist in lifetime in any case. Of year I could include developed one but it wouldn't include been plausible, sadly I'm not Dickens. Gill thinks we're residing via which he telephone call sickening times politically. But same's happy how audiences appear now to answer to his gay loving history more than easily rather than 17 year back. Down there's a certain distinction, the unique auditorium in 2001 was susceptible but you could as well speak it was uneasy by the object. Now all how has lost, audiences take the relation among George and John out of issue. Human beings don't now appear to ask themselves if they're imaginary to claim or discourage. How's above currently, we expect. And I do get how as a go striker. The York Realist is at the Melting Pot Theatre, Sheffield of March 27th.